Welcome to episode 2 of How to Start, Grow and Monetize Your Podcast with myself, Alex Chisnell, and the very special James Burt.
Thank you very much. That's a good choice of words, special.
Like
Sorry, I'm laughing there because I can't get the name of our podcast right for Love Nor Money, and he just did it off the bat. What's it called again?
How to Start, Grow and Monetize Your Podcast.
Why can I not say it? It's
No, I
so
don't.
difficult. Anyway, in this episode, we're going to talk to you about what podcast gear you need on any budget to get yourself up and running. And by the way, spoiler alert, you don't need to spend thousands of quid. In fact, I don't think you should spend thousands of quid to get started. How did you get started on your podcasting journey?
I started with one of those headsets that you see in a call centre, like a pair of headphones with a mic, like Britney Spears style.
Oh, like a recruiter?
Yeah,
Hello,
literally.
this is Alex from Alex Recruitment. Are you looking for a great new role?
Literally £25, bought from Amazon. That's what I rolled with for maybe 6 months till it broke and the arm came off.
And how many podcast downloads do you get on a monthly basis now?
Now like 30 to 50,000 downloads. Yeah.
So I just wanted to reiterate that.
How many episodes?
A guy who gets 30 to 50,000 downloads a month for his podcast started with a 25 quid headset.
See where you're going
A
with that.
£25 headset. So please do not think, because I see so many people do this, I haven't quite got the budget, haven't quite got the
all
gear
the
yet,
time.
haven't quite got the right setup. I'm doing my home office. I'm doing the downstairs toilet cupboard. I'm turning that into a studio. I'm just getting some soundproofing.
Yeah.
You don't need any of that stuff. You just need a great idea, information, education and entertainment, and know who you're talking to. That's all you need to get started with the podcast.
And look, well, every time we mention this, we should get a physical thing here that we could put a pound in every time, because every time we mention Diary of a CEO or Stephen Bartlett,
Ka-ching,
we need a
ka-ching.
pound, okay? To Stephen Bartlett, who,
Ka-ching.
funnily enough, was the first guest on my first ever podcast.
Oh, it was, wasn't he?
He was. He's gone on to be the number 1 podcast in Europe, one of the top 10 podcasts in the world. Guess how he started? I think you know the answer.
Yeah, it was using his mobile phone under a blanket, under his stairs in a flat in Manchester.
There you go.
So I think one of the key things here, right, is understanding how you're going to format your show and what kind of show that it is you want to create. So to get started, now you might see a Joe Rogan, a high performance, a happy
CEO,
place, cha-ching, Diary of a CEO. I was trying to think of every other podcast and not that.
Sorry.
School of Greatness, High Performance, all these different. Chris Williams was like getting recording studios with 360 video walls and stuff now to record for Modern Wisdom. It looks amazing. It looks fantastic. It grows an audience for sure if you've got nice visuals. But you just don't need it. To get yourself started, you can literally do this show remotely. And if you're thinking, well, yeah, but all the big shows do it in person. One of my favourite podcasts, a show called My First Million, with 2 VCs from America. I don't think they've ever done it in the same room. It's always recorded on Riverside, and they just do it remotely.
Yeah.
So recording remotely, the benefits of recording remotely, number 1, the cost of production is so much easier. Number 2, it's so much easier to manage your schedule and the schedule of your guests, and we'll touch on that in a minute. And number 3, you just don't need so much gear, because if you do it in a studio location like this, you'll probably be charged, 150 quid an hour for a studio like this. If you bought the gear yourself, you probably need 2, 3, 4 grand's worth of gear. Realistically, it's probably 10 grand's worth of gear in this room right now. With a podcast, which you do remotely, you can literally, to start with, use your laptop mic and your laptop camera. Now, is that best practice and would I suggest it? Ideally not.
No, ideally not.
But you don't need to spend a fortune. So what are the next sort of steps? If you're not going to use your mobile phone and you're not going to go to a 15 grand studio, what are sort of the steps in between for a remote podcast, would you say?
Yeah, and again, you can get started with stuff you've already got. So if you already have a subscription to Zoom, or you've got Google Meets, you want to literally just record remotely from your laptop, you could do that. We both recommend a better platform than that, called riverside.fm. Which is basically like a mobile recording studio, I think, like a virtual recording studio. You've got echo cancellation, you've got the option, do you have headphones? Do you not have headphones? And it will sync that up for you. You can even go live on there now, I think, as well. It's fantastic. It's got some AI tools in there as well to make things easier for you, to create little video clips that you can use to promote your podcast as well.
You can edit in there as well, I think.
You can edit in there as well. Yeah. So literally, if you want to take the next step, as James said, and not just record with what's on your phone or what's on your laptop, you can literally pay about $20, $25 a month to have a subscription to Riverside.fm. You could buy an entry-level mic, a USB, so the USB goes straight into the USB connection on your laptop. Where would you start with that?
So if you're going right at the sort of the bottom end of the budget, there's one that's very, very popular. It's got like 30,000 4.5-star reviews on Amazon called a Blue Yeti Snowball.
One. That was my second one.
Ice. Yes, it was my second one as well, actually. They're about $50, 50 quid.
Yeah.
You can get on Amazon, next day delivery. You can get all of your local audio hi-fi shops as well. But yeah, it's really, really good quality. Again, the podcast snobs on LinkedIn be like, oh, it's not cardioid. Oh, but you can't choose the frequency of the modulation. Shut up. Like, don't let that stop you. Just bloody well get on with it. Yeah. It sounds better than your laptop microphone.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound as good as Whitney Houston's recording studio. Wow, old school reference. You made reference to Batfink in episode 1, and I'm referencing Whitney in episode 2. You can tell our stop. You can tell what demographic we're going to appeal to. But ultimately, yes, a 50 quid Blue Yeti microphone would be more than sufficient. And again, your webcam built into a new Mac is probably all right. If you've got a PC, again, they're probably all right. But if you wanted to upgrade that to the next level, you could go for something like a Logitech webcam, which again is USB. It plugs straight in.
Clips on the top of your
laptop or your computer.
Yeah.
It runs in 4K if you do the right settings. It runs in 1080, so again 1080 and 4K is kind of the best quality you're going to get for like a YouTube. You don't need it to be any higher quality than that. The more high quality you run, the higher the bandwidth, slows your internet, your computer down, and that really would get you up and running. Between Riverside, a USB microphone for 50 quid and a Logitech webcam for about 80 quid, you'd be off to the races.
I'll raise you a set of headphones and I'll raise you some lighting as well.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so talk to me. Right. Why would somebody need a headset other than the obvious example of being able to hear your guest? Yeah, it's something quite important to it.
Yeah, hearing your guest is quite important.
Yeah, I think it's up there.
Actually, yeah. If you're having a conversation, you should really know what the other person's saying so you can react to it in the most appropriate way. But also for remote recordings, it's actually easier to ensure that you don't get horrible echo or feedback. Because feedback is created by the microphone picking up the audio that it's creating itself. That's why you get that horrible screech, which is why if you pull the source of the feedback away from the speakers, you get rid of the feedback. So effectively, anytime you can, and this is the thing with remote recordings, right? We've made it sound super simple, and it can be super simple. You can use Riverside with no gear if you need to.
Exactly, no headphones, no camera.
But being a nice quiet location, highest internet speed that you can, because then you're going to get good bandwidth. It's going to make the conversation easier to have. But that's pretty much all that you need. Then in terms of like the lighting, I mean, there's a million and one different lights you could buy for like 15, 20 quid.
Yeah, it's the lighting ring
lights.
And that's how I started. You know, I got a small one, then I got one on a tripod, a bigger one to light me better. But ultimately,
he's a diva now. He loves all the lights.
Yeah, like Whitney. So what was I going to say? You're taking me off my train of thought. So look, you could spend all the money in the world on podcasting, but you could be in the worst surroundings, surrounded by like metal and glass, and it will sound like the worst recording ever. So as long as you're somewhere quiet and you've got soft furnishings, like there's a carpet, there's a sofa, maybe there's some cushions, things like that. Tim Ferriss prides himself on the fact that he doesn't spend more than $150 on his kit that he travelled all around the world with.
He's had 1 billion downloads, I think.
Something crazy.
1 billion downloads.
And these are like top 10, shows in the world. So you don't need a lot to get started. Could you spend a lot? Yeah, it's like how long is a piece of string? It's the same if you start off, I don't know, playing tennis or playing paddle or squash.
I knew you were going to bring up paddle. He's addicted to paddle.
I'm addicted to it. I love it. So you could just keep buying better versions of that racket.
Yeah.
Clothing. Same if you were a skier or snowboarder. Got snowboarding in there as well. There you go. You could just keep spending money, but you don't need to get going. So we're here to tell you that. Just focus on getting started, the least barriers to entry. Start now, get perfect later. Start with what you've got, if that's what you're going to start with. But if you can, spend a little money and get a subscription to Riverside if you're going to start online, and get yourself a microphone as well. Get yourself a ring light. And you could do all of what we're saying for under 100 quid. Headset, you might already have a headset that you can just plug into your laptop. But equally, again, you could probably spend, what, 20, 25 pounds on a half decent?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, if that.
One of the other things as well with remote recording, because you might be listening to this a little bit deflated, going, well, I want like a 4-camera setup, and I want the one that moves on that dolly back and forth, which gives you the emotional tear of somebody crying on the podcast, mentioning no names because I don't want to put another quid in the bucket. But really, remote podcasts are not just easier and cheaper, but they're actually so much more easy for you to organise for your guest as well. Now, I've done interviews with like Rob Dyrdek, who's like an amazing VC investor from LA. There's no way I'm going to get Rob Dyrdek on a plane, and there's no way that I was going out to LA at that point in time. I've interviewed the guy who invented the trunky suitcase, who's based up in Scotland. I've interviewed Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone during hurricane, and they were bunkered down in Florida at one point. I've done all these sort of interviews. There's no way that I would have got them to do it in person. And can you get more from a podcast interview in person? I think you can, because it's the other relationship building stuff that happens off the back of it. There's something intangible about being in a room with somebody. You can feel their energy, you can read their body language more easily. But equally, if there are people around the world and they're in different time zones and all the rest of it, doing it remotely not only saves you a bunch of time and makes it a whole lot easier from your side, it makes it easier for the guest to say yes as well. You got to think that for people, whether you're in a super niche, there are so many podcasts now that loads of people who you are likely to want to get on your show have been offered to do lots of podcasts at this point in time. It would be very, very rare to find a niche or a sub-niche where the podcasting thing hasn't already infiltrated it. So if you can go to someone and say, hey, I'd love to do a podcast recording. We do it on Riverside. We're recording really good quality audio and video. We'll give you a bunch of assets. We'll give you short form. We'll do a trailer. We'll do some clips. We're going to talk about all about that in more detail in future episodes. But if you can give them all of those assets and make it easy for them, all they have to do is turn up, give you 45 minutes of their time, and then they go again. It makes it so easy. And again, with platforms like a Riverside, there's really no loss in the quality at all. No,
and what you'll also get off the back of that is if you do have a super organized, smooth process for your podcast, super organized, and you're able to get those guests on the show. In turn, those guests sharing your podcast will give you increased reach. So instead of just being contained within, for example, in our case, getting guests to come to a studio in London in the United Kingdom, instead, as James mentioned and myself, literally interviewing people in Singapore, in South Florida, and everywhere in between, you're able to get massive reach with your podcast. And in turn, when those guests share the assets that you've created for your podcast, they'll share them as well. Not everybody will, okay? Not everybody will, but a lot of your guests will want to promote the thing that they've been on your podcast talking about. So it's in their interest to do that. So you're going to massively extend the reach of your show. You've got the ability to actually grow your show faster than somebody recording in a studio, because everything gets slowed down by recording that in a studio. The whole process gets slowed down.
You're speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience, you're literally, booking people in. We're recording this in October now. People are talking about 2025. When my clients got the next availability, my guests got the next availability.
Yeah, so, same here.
Choose something with the least barrier to entry. And again, if you are hell-bent on launching a podcast in a studio and you've got the budget to do that, then 100% we are not going to hold you back. We want you to do the thing that is going to get you to launch your podcast quicker, because the longer you leave it, the less chance it will ever happen, okay? 5 years he waited. I waited 5 months. So take a leaf out of our books.
Or not.
Launch it on, or not. Yeah, launch it online. But if not, then find a studio. You're probably going to be spending, somewhere between 100 and 150, 175 pounds an hour for that studio. If that's in budget and you want full production, then we're not the people to stop you doing that. 100% go for it, but get super organized. Plan out your guests, plan out your topics, all stuff that we will cover in future episodes of
How to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. I've got one final hack as well about recording remotely and online. There's a huge amount of talk, especially at the time of recording in 2024, around community. How do you build community? I think there's an amazing opportunity for community with building remotely. I've only just thought about this actually. This is a good little hack. But you could give your inner sanctum, your inner community members, exclusive early access. You could let them into the recording session on Riverside. On Riverside, you can actually, there's a green room. You can actually give your audience accessibility to it. And you could maybe, as a great little teaser, you could go live in your platform for X amount of time, and then you could just stop. So if you want to listen to the rest, and I used to do this before when I did stuff, if I was recording, I'd go live on Facebook if I was with the guest, and then I'd actually stop the recording and go, hopefully you've enjoyed that little teaser. The whole episode is going out next Tuesday. Feel free to go and download the podcast now. But for now, we're going to carry on with the rest of the recording. You have to find out what happened next on next week's show. It's a really good way of doing it.
You trickster, you.
Yeah, little trickster. If you have enjoyed this episode and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to find out more information about all this kind of stuff, you can join our free community. It's called Podschool.
Community!
School.com, skool.com/Podschool, PODSCHOOL. And you can join. It's completely free to join. You can get access to blueprints, cheat sheets, guides, downloads. There's a great community in there. There's conversations all the time. We do weekly webinars. We've got courses on there.
Cool
Anything
guests.
that you need to do. Very, very cool guests, industry experts, and hundreds of other podcasters and content creators who can all help you to take your podcast game to the next level. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you have, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. As we talk about podcasts, it's about podcasting, right? And we'll see you on the next episode.